continue our study of the gas giants. We're still in chapter 1 as we press forward towards the end. Today we'll discuss the more distant pair of the 4 gas giants, Uranus and Neptune. We finished our discussion last lesson about Jupiter and Saturn and the unique things that make them truly spectacular and noteworthy. Well, you're going to find these pretty blue marbles in space, Uranus, the lighter of the two, and Neptune, the darker blue of the two. Both have their own things that make them truly spectacular and amazing. So let's go through those together. So Uranus and Neptune. At this point, you should have already finished up to page 17. And next section will be pushing forward through to page 31 in your book, and that will end Chapter 1 of your book of astronomy, the solar system. All right, here we go. Take a look at Neptune. It has rings, not quite as dramatic as Saturn's, but they're definitely there. In fact, all the gas giants have rings. Okay, it's a beautiful planet to behold. It is so far from the sun that the ancient peoples on Earth just saw it as another star, a dim light that really never was noted by them as anything other than the background of all the stars in their night sky. They didn't know it was a planet. In fact, it wasn't until after the discovery of the telescope that we started realizing that is another gas giant out there. And when the Voyagers made their trip out in the 1970s, and it was the late 1970s when Voyager 2 visited Uranus, that we really got a close look at how beautiful this particular world is. So Herschel discovered Uranus in 1781, and they debated quite a while as to what they wanted to call it. And eventually they settled on, this is one of the rare exceptions to the rule of using Roman names. Jupiter is Zeus, obviously Neptune is Poseidon, Venus is Aphrodite, and so forth. The planet Uranus is the original Greek name for the father of the ancient gods. So Jupiter, king of the gods, his father, Saturn, lord of time, and then now Uranus, the Greek name for Saturn's father. So really this is Jupiter's grandfather. This is the name they gave to this beautiful world that has been turned completely on its side. So you know how Earth has a 23.5 degree tilt, right? 23.5 degrees, and it gives us our seasons. Okay. Part of the year, this half gets more sunlight, and this half doesn't get as much because it's tilted away from the sun. We have summer, they have winter down in Australia, and then the seasons reverse 6 months later. Now, imagine Uranus, right? Take a look at the little picture of my face down in the corner now. Imagine Uranus isn't at a 23 degree tilt. It is completely on its side as it makes its way around the sun, okay? Completely rolled over on its side. Something in its past, something in Uranus's past, a violent event, turned that planet completely on its side, and now half of its year, the North Pole points toward the sun, and then it makes its way around, and the South Pole points at the sun. So half of its year, either hemisphere is completely in darkness, and the other hemisphere is completely illuminated all the time. That's a world turned on its side. Interesting. By coincidence, it is also the coldest place in the solar system, the coldest temperatures of any planet. Okay, so that makes it noteworthy as well. Check this out. As it makes its way around the sun, it appears to orient itself. Imagine it rotating and revolving around the sun at the same time. Again, truly a world turned on its side. And it takes years for this transition to happen. This is how we see it from Earth. Lots of moons, as all the gas giants have, Not as many as Jupiter and Saturn. Jupiter and Saturn are always in the 60 to 70 range. They keep finding more. This one has in the 20s. Okay. And you'll find when we get to Neptune, it's got even less, but still noteworthy, interesting objects that are in orbit around Uranus. All right. Let's zoom a little further back from the sun. Let's look at the very frontier of the planet zone around our solar system. Neptune, beautiful, deep blue. And don't let its color make you think that it's a peaceful place. It's actually pretty violent. Um, it's a it's the angriest of the gas giants. So whereas Uranus was the coldest, Neptune is the windiest. We'll talk about that as we take a closer look. Let's check out Neptune. All right. Now, Neptune was also only discovered after telescopes, good telescopes, were created. And then they realized once again the movement of one of the stars against all the others. That has to be a planet. Okay. And when we discovered better and better telescopes, we realized the blue light coming off of it, it inherited the name Poseidon, well, Neptune, the Roman version of the ancient Greek god of the oceans. Now, mainly the light coming off of Neptune and the probe Voyager 2 that did its flyby and took some of these amazing pictures, they knew it was oxygen and hydrogen for the most part, but a little bit of methane in the atmosphere gives it that deep, deep blue color. Howling winds. This is where Neptune is the windiest place. The great blue spot there has winds that howl along faster than the speed of sound, like 1,000-mile-an-hour wind, 1,200-mile-an-hour wind. On Earth, the fastest hurricane ever recorded was 254 miles an hour. And on Neptune, let's quadruple that number or quintuple that number. And now you're at the level of wind that is howling on Neptune. Anything that would try to float in Neptune's atmosphere would quickly be shredded by powerful wind. So it's the gas giant we can really never visit. We're going to keep a healthy distance. It's at the very edge of our solar system, the planet zone of our solar system, because beyond it is a region of space we'll discuss 2 lessons from now called the Kuiper Belt. And the Kuiper Belt is where Pluto and all his friends hang out. But Neptune, that's the edge of the planetary zone, the last of the 4 giants, beautiful to behold, and its moons are really interesting. One of them in particular, very fascinating. I'm going to show you what makes Triton, which is king of the mer people. If you've ever seen The Little Mermaid, King Triton, again, following Neptune being the god of the sea, it was like Neptune's son who was named Triton. And then in Disney took it and made it the father of Ariel in the story. Now, Triton, there's a strong suspicion that it's not a moon that formed along with Neptune, but it is in fact a captured object from the Kuiper Belt beyond, like a super Pluto. It's bigger than Pluto, but the way it behaves and what it's made of suggests to us that Triton must be a captured object from beyond. Let me show you what I mean. All planets that have a moon have a pattern to how they move. Triton ignores that pattern and goes the other way. Let me show you what I mean. The Earth, as you know, rotates to the east so that we appear to see the sun rise in the east and set in the west. That's how we see it, because it's rotating to the east. The moon also moves this same direction in an easterly orbit around the Earth. All planets that have moons have moons follow this pattern. Whatever direction they orbit, the moons go the same way, except Triton. So if I use this as an example of Neptune, here's Neptune going to the east, Triton goes the wrong way around Neptune. Okay. That tells us that probably Neptune, being right near where all of Pluto and his buddies are, all the others, happened too close to Triton, and instead of grabbing it with its gravity in a way that it's rotating in a proper direction, it grabbed it and it swung around behind and started orbiting around Neptune in the wrong direction. That means it's a captured object. It wasn't originally part of Neptune. It's larger than all the other moons. It's made of ice, just like Pluto and Eris and all the other objects out there beyond Neptune. So they think it's a captured Kuiper Belt object, like Pluto. Okay. So that makes it fabulously interesting. It has a nitrogen atmosphere. You can see it's covered in ices that have most likely erupted from cryovolcanoes and rained back down onto the surface, giving it the appearance of freshly fallen snow. So Triton is an interesting place. Potentially someday an outpost, maybe at the edge of our solar system. Why not put something there, some base or some research station, some telescopes that so far from the sun can get a better view of space beyond, especially when it's around the backside of Neptune and the sunlight is blocked. Fabulous potential. All right. So I've given you a few things to think about for Uranus and Neptune. What I would like you to do in the description of this video, there are two links. One goes over Neptune and gives you some more details. One looks at Uranus, and they'll be in the same order, Uranus then Neptune. I'd like you to link those, open them up, take a look as you build those pages for the last two of our gas giants. Then press forward with your work. We're going to look at dwarf planets next, because beyond Neptune, right, beyond the planetary frontier are the dwarf planets. To review, you've done Jupiter and Saturn. Now we're up to page 21 with those two. Today we've added our look at Uranus, the world on its side. When you do the drawing, again, trace your circles, don't freehand it. Uranus is a beautiful, perfect sphere, not a potato. Give it those vertical rings. Show that the planet is in fact on its side by giving it the vertical rings in your drawing on page 22. Page 23, you're looking at the details of it, just like all the others, and then Neptune gets page 24 and 25. Beyond that, the Kuiper Belt, the dwarf planets, and the very edge of our solar system awaits. That's our discussion today. Reach out to me if you have questions, and keep pressing forward and keep looking up.